Actually look at the Outlaws, is keep that DPS duo together. For the Shock, at least at the start here, looks like Nero potentially playing the Junkrat. So this is probably to counter a lot of the Doomfist kind of shenanigans you would think are coming in for the Outlaws, because Junkrat just puts down a ton of damage on the shields and it's really front-loaded, so it makes it difficult for Doom to get into the backline.
Frustrating composition for Super to deal with here. JJANGU already found Tayo there. Symmetra so fragile sometimes in that front line, and he gets brought down early. So point control here for the Outlaws, and see Trichoban's trying to back away, but is a little bit split as a result. Hydration looks to capitalize, and FD God goes down.
And what the Outlaws are playing is just kind of like another variation of Brawl, right? Like you can play Brawl with the Mei in the lineup, you can play it with Doomfist, you can play Mei Reaper. Really, you kind of have the Lucia, the Baptiste, the Rein with the D.Va Warzaria, and then the McCree in the mix. You kind of can supplement that other DPS in any way you want. As the Shock, they make a change. Tayo will go off of the Symmetra here, play McCree. They have a great comp to counter this Doomfist. That'll be an Ant Matrix from both sides early on. Look at the aggression from the Outlaws, Mitch. Get right through the window, put all the damage down onto the Shock. Really the aggressor early on.
Yeah, and incredible Earth Shatter there. It looks like San Francisco were just not ready for it, and although it might have been a trademark line from Super, the MTD right now rests on the side of JJANGU and the Outlaws. Slow start in this map from Tayo, of course. That Symmetra foray didn't work that well. Here's a Deadeye from Happy. Look at how they would have pushed forward with that corn if he got it. Super. Not a great start. Violet has to hastily throw down that immortality field, but he won't get away from the swinging hammer of JJANGU. And oh, Tayo, you're asking for a lot there. Hydration comes to the rescue, but Happy looked like he had it on lock.
Well, if you remember last year, Super talked really highly of JJANGU and Piggy when they were over in Korea scrimming for the grand finals and the playoffs. It was a scrim partner for the Shock and thought they were a very good tank line, probably because they saw a lot of things like this in their scrimmages where Meteor Strike for Hydration at the ready goes in, puts a lot of damage down on the Tayo.
That Riptide doesn't look nearly as good with the sound barrier in play, but Nero's still able to find Hydration. Super wins the frontline duel finally, and Happy with yet another Deadeye. Oh, you're kidding me! That's not supposed to happen! I think Nero might have knocked Happy up, or FD got with a boot from behind, gives him actually a good Deadeye position. Sound barrier here for the San Francisco Shock now, but they've lost Tayo. FD God and Violet in the back are looking pretty low, and Super has to duel with JJANGU in the front line. But look who gets involved. It's Hydration. Super, moist enough as it is, tries to go for an Earth Shatter and gets rid of the Doomfist, but still being pressured. JJANGU's Shatter doesn't find anything, and Trichoban's come to the rescue. San Francisco hang on by the skin of their teeth.
It always seems like they can battle back right at the end. Is Piggy will go up, take serve on the point here. Oh my! Happy on a little bit of a flank. Oh, that's I mean, you can't take out 3 players there, especially with the immortality field. So Houston will back up now, but like you mentioned, that got really scary because I believe it was a a Junkrat mine that knocked Happy up into the sky. And he's able to get one with his Deadeye, and you thought that maybe like panic would set in and things would kind of fall apart, but the Shock too composed for that.
Happy is actively looking for these flanking opportunities, as is Hydration. This is making the Outlaws pretty darn hard to predict. Look at him, drops down now. Oh my, someone must have shot the bat signal against both supports. San Francisco, to say they're in dire straits would be an utter understatement. The charge there, Justin Trichoban gets reseated and Nero gets turned into a pancake. Overtime now, no one from the Shock here on the point. The Houston Outlaws have decimated them.
And you can see what Hydration brings to the team. He probably is incredibly happy to be back on DPS and not playing the Orisa for the team. But just with that Doomfist play there at the end, gets both supports before the fight even really kicks off. Right as the tank's going to get to the choke. It's huge. There's no chance that the Shock win that fight after that. And Houston at full strength, the Shock with no supports. As now, as we move forward in LIJIANG Tower, this is why I thought you would see Hydration come into the game, play some Pharah.
The first time I saw Hydration was on this very map playing for Team Counterlogic Gaming back in, 2017 maybe, in Contenders in NA, and he absolutely dominated on that pick. Unfortunately, we're not going to get it, or maybe we'll get it later on here, but it looks like the Mei is the play for the Outlaws here. And Hydration, we know, incredibly proficient on this hero as well.
Mei Symmetra for both teams. The difference here is how you're going to have Piggy playing the Sigma, and he's actually going to be able to take out Tayo first. And But Symmetra in these types of compositions, you know, great mobility with the teleporter to be able to get to the point. The turrets are just annoying to deal with. But just the amount of damage that Symmetra can put on the shield, how strong she can get, especially when, you know, both teams are running shield tanks. Outlaws running 2 shields for Tayo to potentially get charged up on. To lose him early really stings.
Happy's able to stay longer in the fight here, get closer, of course, to the projected barrier, which will be very hard to deal with. Okay, Super might have got caught off there if he'd not stepped back, and he did. Good timing. Here's an amplification matrix right now. It has to be an immortality field to keep Tayo standing so vulnerable to Symmetra if she's playing in the front line. But that's where she needs to be most effective. Trickhoven is desuited now, and Happy is charged up. Again, he's not biting off more than he can chew right now. Happy to work away on Super Shield and throw some turrets into the back. Okay, it's going to be Gravitic Flux now. A few shock plays up in the air, but it's going to be Tayo. Nero going to be using that ice block. It's not enough. Happy is causing so many problems right now. I don't think San Francisco booked laser hair removal, but Happy's happy to provide anyway.
This has really been all Outlaws early on. No, the last point, the Shunk, they win a fight, they take control of it, but really it was all Houston's game. Maybe Danny Lim is onto something here.
He called it a miracle, though. It doesn't look like a miracle. It just looks like fundamentals right now.
Well, let's see how the Shock, they can engage here with Sound Barrier if they would like, but they almost need to save it for this Blizzard. They know Hydration has to have it.
FD God, not playing passively here, just sat in the window. Here comes the Blizzard now from San Francisco. Nero's able to freeze up JJANGU, but the barrier in the way means he's well protected, kept alive by the immortality field, and there's a sound barrier. The Outlaws backline doing such a great job of keeping the contested tanks in the fight. Both immortality fields are down now. Ice wall from Hydration. He's moved back, so that might not land exactly where he needs it, but it gets both tanks. DC for Trickhoven. Super fares hardly any better. JJANGU finishes the job there by squishing him up against the wall. This will be the Outlaws back in control in San Francisco in last fight territory.
It's such beautiful play from the Outlaws there. FD God has to use his sound barrier because they know the Shock are not able to push all the way forward and get any kills off of that. They need the sound barrier to counteract the sound barrier for the Outlaws, which they assume is going to be coming in after the rush. They just wait a little bit. Hydration splits off the tanks with a May wall, drops down a Blizzard. There's no chance of the Shock winning that fight.
It has to be now for San Francisco. The amplification matrix has to set them up for a big fight, and there it is. But look how low Violet is. Some of the players from the Shock are able to get out of the Gravitic Flux, but not all of them. This requires the immortality field to keep them standing. Again, Violet's still so low in this fight, but they get rid of JJANGU. San Francisco need to make it happen here. Accretion hits Super. He quickly puts the shield up and stays alive, but has to back up on the point here. This gives time for the Outlaws to regroup, to breathe. Hydration comes out of the ice block immediately under pressure from Super, who now sees an amplification matrix in the way. They've lost Tayo again, but Hydration is traded out now in the 5v5, and Super's looking for the MTD. Instead, he's the one that gets the MTD. JJANGU brings it down. Shatter, Super absolutely furious, and San Francisco shell-shocked.
And you can see it on Super's face. It's the same reaction that I had, which is, what? Where did that shatter come from? As he pushes through the Symmetra wall, they get one. They think they can finish off the Outlaws and put away that fight, but it's JJANGU off the spawn, connects to the big shatter.
Tayo absolutely worked in the neutral in that front line, really struggling to have an impact. JJANGU, absolutely sensational play. And you know all he did, Matt? He walked up the bridge and just threw down the Earth Shatter. There was a Symmetra barrier in place. Somehow the Shock weren't ready for that, but by God, they should have been.